Appreciate you guys having me back. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, and I'm glad to see you all again. For those that didn't know, my 20 years at IDOT, I spent most of it in local roads and streets, working in various roles, but one of the best parts was the technology transfer manager, where I got to get out on a regular basis and talk to you guys about a variety of different issues. My number and door is still open to you, even though I've got a different role now. As Executive Vice President of the Illinois Asphalt Pavement Association, my main role now is to represent the hot mix asphalt guys and represent them with the department and other governmental agencies. So hopefully we'll get you all paving with hot mix asphalt and putting some hard roads back. I know that's a struggle for most of you. Most of you guys right now are probably thinking, I'd just be happy to put a seal coat down every few years on my road, let alone talking about hot mix. So we're going to talk about your maintenance program and things you need to be aware of as you're putting together your maintenance program, and a lot of the things that you don't necessarily have control over but will have a direct impact on your program. There's my contact information. Available if you type my name on asphalt pavement. It's out on the website as well. But again, always open to talk to you about any issues that you may have, whether it be with asphalt related or just you have some general questions and you can't get an answer from IDOT. I can hopefully point you still in the right direction of where to go. All right, so what are some things we need to look at when we look at our road maintenance program? We need to look at the factors that are going to impact it. Then we're going to look how to actually implement it. Then we'll talk a little bit about modifying it based on things that happen over the years. And then how we're going to evaluate it and make sure that we're actually having performance, getting good performance out of our maintenance program, and we're giving a value to the taxpayers. You guys are kind of on a double-edged sword. One, you are a taxing unit of government. Tax money are funding your roads. But two, you're also an elected official. IDOT, counties, municipalities, they have an elected board that the voters can go to. As a highway commissioner, you are directly responsible to the voters because every 4 years you go up to be elected. So it's very important that your maintenance program is addressing their needs. So let's look at the factors. The two biggest factors you have are the highway system that you have, as well as the funding. So your highway system, what's the number of miles you have? How many miles do you need to cover? What's the surface type? Do you have earth roads? Do you have gravel roads? Do you have paved roads? Are those paved roads, are they made out of concrete, which is bad, by the way? And then also, or is it made out of hot mix, which is good, by the way? What is your system made out of? How wide are the roads? What's the type of traffic that you have? Do you have heavy trucks? Do you have farmers? Are you a commuter route? All these decisions are going to impact how you're going to maintain your road system and how you want to move forward with decisions for the limited funding that you are going to have. What's the existing condition of the road? How many are thinking about moving back to gravel roads? There's a few hands going up, right? All right, you've got paved roads or seal-coated roads. You just don't have the money. You can't maintain them the way they are, so you're looking at going back to gravel roads. Well, that's not an ideal thing to be. But if you are going to go back to gravel, there's going to be ways that you can maintain your gravel roads so that you give your customers the best service available. Again, it's going to have to be something that they're aware of that you were converting back, so they're not going to get the same service as they used to, but you're still going to maintain it at a high level. Funding. That's what's going to drive our maintenance program, right? Because again, I guarantee if you all had enough money, you would probably try to pave every road, whether that be out of concrete or hot mix. We know that that's going to give us a better ride. Our customers are going to like it better. But you don't have the money. So what money do you have available, and are you maximizing those dollars? It can include local taxes. Do you have maintenance agreements with other units of government, whether it be municipalities or other townships? Your MFT funds, and then also some special programs. So let's look at the highway system. How many of you have an inventory? Everybody's hand better be up. You have an inventory whether you realize it or not. Your county engineer probably has a good idea where it is. Every year you probably are filling out some type of report for the county engineer where you're saying these are my miles of roads that I have. That's very important because when we start talking MFT dollars, that's how you're paid on your MFT dollars, based on the number of miles of roads you have. So if you don't have all of your roadways captured, you're missing out on dollars. So it's very important that you take that report, review it, and make sure that your roadways are all accurately reflected in there. IDOT also maintains a GIS map. Now, we can get real high tech with our pavement inventory. We can have a computer system that has layers upon layers upon layers that actually has all that information about the roadway, whether it be traffic, whether it be width, whether it be construction records. You can tie back all of your old 1850 files from when the road was originally platted, and you can put those in an electronic format so people can pull that all up. All right, that's probably not something that you guys are going to do, because one, it's got a lot of work. Two, it's a lot of work to maintain. And three, if you're going to hire somebody, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So for most highway commissioners, you're probably going to use a map on the wall in your office. It could be a field book. Again, it doesn't matter how you maintain your inventory. The important thing is that you understand where my roads are, what type of roads I have, and how is the best way for me to maintain those roads going forward. Some important data, though, you should have is, like I said, you need to know the surface type. Traffic is a huge issue. You know, what is your traffic? Is it mostly cars? Is it mostly trucks? Is it a farm-to-market route? Do you have a major industry that has special needs? Those are things that are going to drive it. Geometrics. How wide? What's the cross slope? Those are types of things that you need to have a good handle on, whether you have it documented or you know it in your mind. If you know it in your mind, I would still recommend you writing it down somewhere so that there's a record of it. And so somebody that takes over for you eventually doesn't have to relearn all this information. Pavement condition. So what is the condition of my roadway? Good, bad, fair, poor, awful? How are you going to rate your roads? Not existent. Well, your rating can be something as easy as that, a visual. That you go out there and you look at it and you say, well, you know what? This road isn't very good. I rated it as poor. And it's just my gut telling me that. Versus this road is really good. I just did a treatment on it last year and it's holding up well. There are also more in-depth rating systems that you can do. Again, IDOT, they have vans that go around the roadway every 2 years, and they actually take roughness measurements. They take pictures of every crack on the road, and then somebody goes through and evaluates that road and puts it into an equation with about 20, 30 variables, and it spits out a number from 1 to 9. And that's how they rate their roads. Again, that's overkill for a highway commissioner. What you need to know is really based on your gut. How is this road performing? And it can be as simple as good, poor, good, fair, poor, awful, whatever you feel is good. You know, 4 or 5 different categories that you think it is. And you rate it, and you go out there and you rate it each year, and you figure out how you're going to maintain that level of service that you want. Most of you probably would love to be able to say all my roads are good. But is that realistic with the money that you have? Probably not. So that's where you have to have some degree of the type of road I may want to have a higher rating versus the type of road that I don't. You have a road that serves one farm, one house, versus a road that serves your grain silo. Or maybe you have a major industry, whether it be a factory, a Caterpillar manufacturing facility, a nuclear power plant. Some of these major industries that we may have. Well, that's going to depend on that rating. I'm going to want higher on that roads that I have a lot of traffic or is key to my economic community, the economics in my community. It's a large tax base, and I want to make sure that those trucks can get in and out. So what is that acceptable level? There is no correct answer for it. The correct answer is what's best for your township and what's best for your taxpayers. So again, and it can be a different acceptable level for the different types of roads. So you don't have to have it consistent across all your roads. So what about funding? Like I said, there are a lot of different sources that you have. As far as local taxes, your primary one is the road and bridge tax. There's 2 statutes that define how that road and bridge tax is levied and the process that you need to go through. And there's certain times in there that you need to be aware of. Because if you don't do things in a certain amount of time, guess what? You don't get to increase that levy. So you need to make sure that as you're planning your maintenance program, that you're getting all the paperwork in appropriately to your clerk's office or your township board so that they can get everything approved. You can meet all these requirements. TOI does a great job on talking about budgeting and the budgeting process. I recommend everybody get involved or take that or sit in on one of their sessions. The permanent road fund is also called the hard road tax. So in some cases, that permanent road fund, if you want to build a new road, again, let's say that you're having a new industry coming in, and you want to be able to build a hard surface road for them. Well, this tax will actually allow you to establish a tax for a specific road. That can be either for construction of the road, or it can be for the maintenance of the road. So again, if you have hard surface roads that you want to make sure that you're maintaining properly, you don't want to turn them back to gravel, and you don't have this tax established, well, maybe that's something you look at and see if it's something the voters would support of passing a hard road tax. So that's another avenue for you to get some additional revenue. You have specific provisions for establishing these rates, but it's all driven by the two things. It's based on your property values and what are your tax caps in your county or your townships. So again, some counties and townships are under a tax cap or PTEL. So you're going to be limited on how much you can actually raise your taxes. So that's going to function into what type of maintenance program am I going to be able to put together. Like I said, as far as usage of our local taxes, it really comes down to your budget for your road and bridge tax. You establish your budget, you're telling the voters what you're going to spend that road and bridge tax on. But it's pretty open as far as any road construction, any maintenance, equipment. You can actually even have equipment in there. If you know you have a large project that you want to do, construction-wise or maintenance-wise, you can actually define that in your budget and accumulate funds over a time period in order to do that program. So how many people grade roads on a routine basis? Hands going up. How many people would like to buy a new road grader? A few. How much is a new road grader now? $100,000, $200,000? Three? All right, used one. How much is a used one? A good used one. Low-hour used one. Can anybody write a check for that tomorrow? No. So, but if it's something that you need to, if you need, and if it's important as your maintenance program, maybe this is something where you look at your budget and you start saying, hey, I'm going to start saving up money for this over the next 10, 15 years. And you establish that in your budget and you start building up a fund for it. You can also do special projects. There's road and bridge specifically for structures in there. And like I said, I mentioned equipment. Equipment is a big one. That's one area where for your MFT dollars, you can't, when we talk about those, we can't use MFT dollars for equipment. So if we need to buy a new piece of equipment, it's going to have to be through your local taxes. Or you're going to have to get a grant or somebody's going to have to give you the money. When we talk, yes?
That's true, but not true. MFT money.
We'll talk about how to do rental rates when we get into it. That's, yeah, day labor rental rates. We'll talk about that here when we get to it. But again, you're not directly buying the equipment. Yes, sir.
My lawyer gave me an opinion that I could buy equipment with the permanent road.
You can with local taxes. Yes, you can. And permanent road.
MFT, excuse me.
Right, MFT is one we can't buy equipment with that. And permanent road, if you have an opinion from your lawyer, you're good to go. But MFT, you cannot straight out buy the equipment.
But you
So.
can.
But there's a way to offset your equipment costs. Let's put it that way. You're not buying equipment, but you're offsetting the equipment costs. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So what about maintenance agreements? How many of you guys have a maintenance agreement? All right, is the maintenance agreement with another agency? Is it with another township, or how does it work? There's different ways to do it, and there's no right or wrong answer.
All 18 townships in our county.
All right.
Plus us.
So we've got a county-wide in Tazewell County. You have a county-wide for what type of treatment or what type of maintenance?
Labor and equipment.
Okay, labor and equipment.
And labor.
Okay, and is it for seal coat or is it for snow and ice?
Help me out, road commissioners here. Help me out.
Anything, but we don't, our county does not use seal coat.
Okay.
It's anything else.
All right. So again, you pool resources, and there's benefits to that. Mainly, it's going to offset your equipment and labor costs. So not everybody's going to have to buy that road grader. If you can hit 16 townships together, it's going to be a lot easier to come up with that $300,000 than it is for one township to come up with the $300,000. And do you need your road grader 24/7? Probably not. So again, it's a big expense that you're looking at coming up with for something that you may not be using every day. But if you can pull together 3, 4, 5, 16 other townships and you're able to share that piece of equipment and work out the details, intergovernmental agreements are great for that. Yes, Dave?
Hard to do that when you run 24 hours a day when it snows.
That's the issue, is when we start talking about snow and when you need the motor grader. So how do you do that? Well, again, you're going to have to figure out, that's all needs to be worked out in that intergovernmental agreement and on how that equipment's going to be used and who's got priority. Are there certain roads that we need to make sure that are open within the county or within our townships? But that's all something that you can work out through the intergovernmental agreement. Again, lower unit cost. Seal coating is another common intergovernmental agreement where you have one distributor truck and you go around and you have one guy that's seal coating, the other townships provide the laborers, you all buy your own rocks, you bring your trucks out or somebody brings out extra trucks and you do it together. Those are great ways to pool resources and lower that overall unit cost. Anytime you can impact your quantities, that's a great thing. If I'm bidding 1 ton of rock versus 100 tons of rock, I'm probably going to get a better bid on the 100 tons of rock because it's a bigger unit. So if you can increase your unit size, you're going to actually decrease your cost per unit. So use your maintenance agreements and your intergovernmental agreements to help you out. Some townships, especially as cities have grown, they have agreed to take on the maintenance of the city streets. Does anybody have those types of agreements? Few. What's the advantage to you as a highway commissioner? Why did you enter into it?
Just to help out the village inside my township, really. There is no other financial benefit for it.
Right. There's not necessarily a financial benefit because there's a cost for you to do it, but the other big thing that it does allow you to do is, again, it goes back to this pooled resources. Without those roads, you may not have been able to hire the guy that does most of your work. So you may have had to lay off people, but this way you're able to keep that person on staff, and then you pick up these additional roads that you were already taking care of prior to them annexing in the road into the municipality. Yes, sir.
We do it for money. We bring in over $200,000 to $300,000 a year from the other villages.
Right. Because the village then doesn't have to hire the staff, doesn't have to pay the retirement, doesn't have to pay the benefits for having that staff do that. In Wisconsin, actually, which is somewhat unique, the DOT actually sublets all of the maintenance work to the counties. So the county highway department do all the plowing in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin DOT doesn't have highway maintainers. It's the county engineers that have the highway maintainers. So again, there's a lot of different ways, and there's no right or wrong reason to enter into a maintenance agreement. It just needs to make sense to you for your given situation.
What about if it's just a partial? Like I've got a subdivision, it's at the far northern part of our township. And so Palatine does this like 3 or 4 streets for me there. And we give them several loads of salt.
Right. That's fine. That's a perfect example. Another example of that same situation is you have somewhere 200 feet township road, 200 feet municipal road, 200 feet township road. So when I'm plowing that road, does it really make sense for whoever's plowing that road to lift up their plow every 200 feet and turn off the salt spreader? Again, you work out those details, whether it's a trade-off on salt or whether it's a trade-off, well, you're going to do this side of the road because that makes sense because of your routes or your roads that you have, and the municipality is going to do over on this side because, again, it makes sense to them. Those are all perfect things for intergovernmental agreements. And again, reduce duplicative services. How many times have you heard the General Assembly say we have too many units of local government? Right? And who's the target of that right now, the biggest target? Highway commissioners and road districts, as well as townships. So again, you guys serve a very, very vital part of the state that doesn't have road service. The counties don't want to take over all these roads. And a lot of times the municipalities don't want to take over even in urban areas. So you guys serve a very important role in the travel of Illinois. And by doing this type of things where you're making things more efficient, it just helps your cause that, yes, we are doing things efficiently. So maintenance agreements are a great thing. Again, you're not always going to make money, but as long as you're not costing yourself money, I think they're a good thing to enter into. Let's talk a little bit about MFT funding. Many of you have seen this chart before. It's not a good chart for funding. It's the primary, especially downstate or in rural areas, it's probably the primary revenue source that you guys have is your motor fuel tax funds. And you can see the green line is what we're bringing in on an annual basis. And that's slowly going down. It's not going up. Again, these are how the money's being divided between road fund and local agencies. And these are deductions just off the top by statute. They're not diversions, they're statutory diversions. But you can see we're probably going to be below $1.2 billion. At the high, we were almost $1.4 billion. That's $200 million less we're bringing in with 19 cents on the gallon. A lot of reasons. We had a downturn in the economy. Gas prices $4. People are ecstatic now at $2.70 a gallon on gas, and people are like, it's a vacation. Are the prices going to stay there? I have no idea. But you are getting less money. I think you all know that. And at the same time that we've got less money coming in, our construction and costs and our maintenance costs have increased significantly.
On the MFT,
Yes.
I heard that the state was looking for a different way to calculate that by using a usage tax because of all the electric cars and all the energy efficient stuff.
The issue is right now it's 19 cents a gallon, so you have to actually go to the pump to fill up. And great, but now people aren't buying the nice big gas guzzlers. They're buying fuel efficient vehicles. You're seeing 40, 50 miles per hour on regular gasoline. And then you have 100% electric vehicles. We're going to be getting to the point where, yes, we are looking at alternative ways, whether that means some type of vehicle miles travel tax. Again, other types of taxes that might be out there. But quite frankly, that's not going to be something that's going to happen in the short term. That's a 5 to 10 year time frame before we have a revised way to pay for our roads. The immediate need that you guys need is you need more money for motor fuel tax. And there's a couple ways to do that, but it all means an increase in taxes. TFIC, which is another organization that I've been involved in since I've been in a new role, is working on funding proposals. We're looking at a $1.4, $1.5 billion increase in highway funding. It's coming from several sources, but the total result of that funding, if we get it, which is somewhat in doubt, just as we change administrations here right now, would be about an 80% increase in what you're getting in MFT right now. So whatever you're getting, take about 80% of that, and that's what you're going to get in additional. So with the bonding portion of it, for the first 5 or 6 years of the program, it would actually be almost a doubling of your MFT funds. It's coming from several sources. Sales tax on gas. Not only do you pay 19 cents a gallon, that goes into the road fund, you also have a sales tax on gas. The sales tax on gas does not go to roads, though. It goes into the general revenue fund. That's about $800 million a year that's brought in at around $3 a gallon gas. So the question is, well, that's easy. Why don't we just start putting that towards roads? Well, the problem is that's an $800 million coming out of the general revenue fund, which currently has a $1 billion deficit in any given year. So while it sounds easy to take $800 million out of a $35 billion a year budget, well, the problem is it's already in deficit spending. So that's another about $1 billion that we need to come up with. We floated a small increase in gas tax of 4 cents, and many of you probably saw the newspaper and the news-related articles and news reports on that. That's all you heard was that statewide transportation group proposes gas tax increase. They don't say what it is, and it only raises $200 to $220 million a year at 4 cents. But you would think we were asking for doubling of the MFT tax. And quite frankly, if we doubled the gas tax tomorrow from 19 to 38 cents and there was no media, nobody would know. I mean, just look at the gas prices, how they've tanked in the last month or two. But even before that, they would fluctuate anywhere from 10 to 20 cents from day to day. And that's where we're at. We're talking 20 cents it would be a doubling of the MFT tax. This is how it's distributed. You don't need to really recognize this. The only thing that I would like to point out on this is a lot of people talk about diversions out of MFT. Diversions have effectively been eliminated. From Blagojevich and then under Quinn, the Auditor General's had a scathing report. They have effectively been eliminated. The one thing you will hear by people or people that are against a gas tax is that the Auditor General said that 50% of the road fund money is not being used for roads. And that, while that is true, it is not a diversion, because what they're not including, what the Auditor General is not including as a diversion or not being used for road, is they're saying that if IDOT is paying debt service on bonds that they've issued, that is not considered being used on the road. Well, true, it's not being used on the road. It is being used to pay off bonds that were used for constructing a roadway. And that's the biggest problem that we've had with the last couple transportation bills, is they've been 100% bonded programs. So we had these big programs, but now we're going to be paying for them for the next 20 to 30 years. It's like going out and buying a really nice car, but then not being able to afford to put oil and change the tires, right? Is you have a nice car, but you can't maintain it. So we really can't keep bonding our way out of this. We have to have some type of sustained increase in MFT funds. And that's just not for local agencies. That's for the state side too, because you guys got nothing out of the last couple capital bills, except for 80,000-pound trucks. So all these things up here, while they are diversions coming off the top, they are statutory diversions. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but they're not something that somebody decided to do administratively. They were passed in there, you know, whether it be the Great Crossing Protection, the State Boating Act, the Vehicle Inspection Fund. You can look at lopping off a few of these, but when you add up the total dollars, it maybe comes to $100 million total. So it's not going to really solve the problem. You look at the local portion, and then again, road district townships, you guys get about 16% of the MFT take from the local side, and that's paid based on mileage that you have in your county.
Minus county engineer fees.
County engineers depends if you're Cook County or the rest of it. Cook County and the rest of the county. Cook County gets about 16-17%, and the rest of the counties get about 16-17%. Municipalities get about 50%. Just for your, for 2012, you're getting about $1,200 per mile of road that you get. So every mile of road, you could expect $1,200 MFT dollars. And 2007, you were getting about $1,400, $1,450 a mile. So you can see that's a significant decline in what you're receiving. In order to receive your full share, you need to be levying at 0.08%. So where it's important when we go back to our local taxes, you're the only unit of the local government that is required to tax in order to get motor fuel tax funds. It's been that way since you guys originally started getting the money in the 40s and the 50s. So again, I can't tell you why that is, but you are the only unit of government that is required to tax at a certain rate for roads in order to receive motor fuel tax. So if you have a house assessed at $150,000, and you remember your assessed value is not the same as your equalized value, that's going to bring in about $40 because that house assessed is $50,000. So if your road district EAV is around $5 million, at 0.08 you're going to bring in about $4,000. So your MFT dollars has more strings on it. That's the big issue with it. Your local taxes, you have a lot of flexibility, pretty much road purposes, bridge purposes, equipment, but statutes kind of allow certain things, whether it be for the construction and maintenance of road district roads, your grade separations, bicycle signs and markings. There's a special one for some of the northern districts called non-dedicated subdivision roads. Again, very, very few of you have those types of roads. You can also do it for joint improvements or construction or maintenance agreements. Again, we talked about those earlier. You can also use it for investments, engineering services. You can bond with your MFT dollars. So again, if you were trying to buy that equipment or you want to do a major project, you can bond with it. The reason this is important for your maintenance program is because you have to figure out how much am I going to use for maintenance versus how much am I going to use for other types of services. And that's where you have to be the accountant. You have to look at your numbers and say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how much money I have. How much can I dedicate to maintenance versus how much can I dedicate to some other needed construction project that I have going on? And again, we have a long list of things that can be used for policy-wise. And we'll talk about a couple of these, especially the equipment operating costs. But you can see we also have salaries in there. When we talk salaries, it is employees. It is not the highway commissioner, all right? Because you cannot use motor fuel tax funds for an elected position. So you can't pay your own salary, but you can pay the salaries and benefits of any of your employees. Excuse me. So let's talk equipment rental.
You can buy salt with MFT.
Yes, yes. Salt is
I didn't see it on the list, and that's what I'm doing, maintenance.
it is
Under maintenance.
salt storage
Don't worry about it,
facilities.
as long as we can do that.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
It's probably lumped under the construction and maintenance of roads. But then you also have salt storage facilities that you can use it on. So if you need to build a dome to store your salt, you can actually build that out of MFT dollars. But it's in there.
Thank you.
All right, so you can't use your MFT to buy equipment, but you can use it for what we call equipment rental. So if you have that motor grader, or you have those tandem trucks that you're out spreading salt, if you keep an accurate ledger of the miles, the times that you use that truck, you can then charge a certain rate back to your MFT account. So again, let's say you're out there using your truck and you spread salt and plow snow for 12 hours. There will be a rate that IDOT allows you to use, and I don't know what the rate is. Let's just say it's $10 an hour to make the math easy. So what that means is for every hour out there, you can charge $10 for the use of that truck. So again, over 12 hours, that's at $10 a pop, $100, $120 an hour or $120 you could charge to your MFT account. What you have to decide as a highway commissioner, is it worth my time to maintain those payrolls and that ledger sheet? Now maybe it's something you're already doing. Maybe you already have to do it for whatever reason, and so you're already, because your drivers have to fill out time cards maybe. So maybe they're filling out time cards already, so it's something very easy for you to do. You already have the documentation. Then that's very easy for you to take that information and charge equipment. Again, you have to decide, how much MFT dollars am I talking about? Is it worth my time to get that money? Now, if you're getting a very small amount of MFT dollars, this might be a good way for you to do it, because then you can roll that back over into your general funds and then you have more flexibility with it. And there's less paperwork that you have to deal with in submitting to the department and through the county engineer. But if you have a lot of dollars in MFT and you're using it for other maintenance work and you're already filling out all this IDOT paperwork, it may not be worth your time to go through this route. So again, this is an individual decision that you need to make as a highway commissioner, is which route do I want to go? Work with your county engineer on the process and see if they think it'll be worthwhile for you to go through this. I know when we had a lot of the road districts up north, when they started getting motor fuel, when they started getting their proportional share, the amount of money that they were getting was very little. You're talking maybe a couple $100 a month to a couple $1,000 a month, where it really wasn't enough to do any type of project at all. So they would either be saving up their motor fuel tax over years and years and years to do one project, or it was just as easy for them to document that they're using it for MFT eligible projects and then getting that money into their general funds. So there's no right or wrong reason. Equipment rental is a good thing to do. And again, if you are having troubles getting your money, or you don't like the way that IDOT's controlling how you spend your money, or you have problems getting your maintenance program approved, this is a way for you to get the money out of IDOT and into yours, so you have more flexibility. There is, again, work that you're going to have to do to document the process. Materials. So again, this was a question about, can you use it for salt? Yes, you can. The catch is, it has to be IDOT approved materials. All right, so IDOT has certain specification, whether it be the rock salt, the calcium chloride, whatever you're using for snow and ice control or any other products that you have. You have certain procedures and policies and specifications that you need to meet when you're using motor fuel tax funds. So you need to make sure that whoever you're buying from is providing you with material that meets those requirements. A good example of you mentioned rock salt. Are you buying it from CMS or where are you getting it from?
State bid.
It's a state bid, okay. So he's buying it from the state bid. That's the joint purchasing program through the Central Management Services. That way you're ensured that you're going to get state approved material. The problem is, like a lot of years, guess what this happened this year?
130 got left off.
I heard it was 300 got left off. Yeah, so statewide there were 300 people that wanted to buy rock salt off of the state purchase, and they got 0 bids on it. So now that meant that local agency is scrambling to get his salt for the year. All these other agencies have already got bids, so they've tied up the big supply. So when they go out and get their own, it's probably an increased price. What'd you see, about 25 to 50% increase in your bid prices this year per convert versus last? 50?
75.
75?
Harold,
Yeah.
138 versus 56 last year.
138 versus 56. So now,
That's the state bid.
and that's through the state bid, which again is a bulk bid. And now that all that's rock salt is tied up. So if you don't have a state bid or you go out and need more, it's going to be more than the 136 that you have. So it's a double-edged sword on that. But you know you're going to get state approved material. Whereas these other people now, you're there to have to worry, are they getting state approved material? So, but it's the sad way for culverts, whether you're asphalt binder and emulsion, if you have your own seal coat operation. One thing you have to be careful of there is what we're hearing is there are an emulsion supplier that's state certified. They have a tank and they're approved. They sell it to contractor A who does the work. Well, contractor A though decides that, well, you know what, I can actually just sell the oil straight itself to somebody else that needs it. And so they will then sell the stuff that they're buying from supplier A and they'll sell it to a contractor B or to agency. The question then becomes, is that product is still certified? Because you're not buying it from the original source. And does that certification carry through? Some of the emulsion suppliers are concerned that if they don't protect their product, somebody using their certification, if they put it in the tank and don't clean out their tank properly or they don't store it properly, when they then sell it to somebody else as a second hand, it may not meet the requirements. And if something goes wrong with that job, and it's pointing to the oil, they don't want to take responsibility, and I don't blame them. So there is the issue of where you're buying it from, and you're much better off buying it from whoever is the certifying source. So again, let's look at emulsions. If you're buying it from Tri-State out of Morris, you're going to be okay. But if you're buying it from contractor A who bought it from Morris, it may or may not be okay. So that's just something for you to be aware of. And again, I'm not sure where it's on IDOT's radar screen right now. I don't know where they're gonna come down on it. Always work with your county engineer again on materials when you're using MFT funds. If there's a material that you would like to use and it's not state approved, there's a process that you can go through to do it. It requires you to do a little bit of paperwork, but it's through the experimental feature. So even if there's something new that's not approved and you want to try it, there's a process you can go through. Talk to your county engineer. So if it was me, this is how I would use my motor fuel tax funds. First of all, I know a lot of you guys do your own work, whether it be pulling up your shoulders and buying aggregate, right? Almost all of you buy some type of aggregate. I'd be using my motor fuel tax funds for that. One, you're going to make sure that way you get state approved material and that you're getting a quality material that has been inspected. So materials would be always my first one, whether it be rocks, whether it be culverts, whether it be rock salt, or other types of snow and ice material. Maintenance is going to give you the most flexibility. So you're going to have to fill out your annual maintenance program. You probably work with your county engineers, and that can include crack sealing, it can include oil and chipping, and it can include a lot of different other maintenance programs that you do on a routine basis. So you're already doing that work. You might as well work with the county. He usually lets it out all as one big contract with all the other highway commissioners in your county. So you're getting that bulk discount. The paperwork is very simple. You can make modifications to it if you need to. Again, you have to fill out a paper for it, but you can make modifications. Equipment rental. Definitely, if you still have money after the first two, next one I would go to is look at equipment rental and what can I charge back to the department and get that back into my local dollars. The last thing I would do for using my MFT funds is any type of construction project. So a new alignment, a big improvement to a road, widening, something along those lines. There's a lot more requirements. You're going to have to work more with your county engineer. Your county engineer is probably going to have a bigger fee that they're going to charge you to do the construction project versus maintenance. So again, you're paying a higher engineering fee for it because there's a lot of hoops to jump through in order to do construction, whether it be permits from EPA and DNR, down to historical and cultural reviews that may have to happen. So there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to build a road in Illinois, really across the country. And that's something that if you can avoid using IDOT funds, it's going to make the process a lot easier. You're still going to have to jump through some hoops, but the hoops aren't going to be as big.
Is a cultural review, you're building a road and it's going through an Indian mound, is that what that?
If you're disturbing ground, you're going to have to do a cultural review that will include Indian burial grounds, those types of things, but it also will include, let's say that you're going through a cemetery or next to a cemetery. There's a cultural review on cemeteries. Let's say that you have a creek running through your township. Well, guess what? You're going to have environmental review to make sure there's no dragonfly or mussels or frogs or toads or snakes or
Wonderful Indiana bats.
Indiana bats. In some areas of the states, you cannot clear trees between, I believe it's March and November, you cannot clear trees. So if you're trying to do an improvement where you need to clear trees, and because of the Indiana bat, you can't clear trees from March to, so again, if you're doing a project, guess what? You're going to have to make sure you're clearing trees from December to January or February. So there's a lot of issues with construction. And IDOT is going to make sure you follow all those rules, but it's very important that you follow them either way. But the process to go through IDOT is going to be a lot longer and a lot harder and a lot more expensive than if you do it on your own and hire your own consultant to help you out. Again, the process to spend MFT, it's initiated by your county engineer. You have to bid it after a certain level, and there's a lot of other things you have to do. You have to advertise it for a certain amount of time, and then there's something called the lowest responsible bidder. Lowest responsible bidder is sometimes based on the pre-qualification. So again, the contractor can't, you have to be pre-qualified with the department once you get over a certain amount of dollars. And then again, we also have apprenticeship and training requirements that they're in the Illinois statute that requires the contractor to basically be certified by the U.S. Department of Labor. And a lot of the smaller contractors don't have that certification, and especially non-union contractors, they wouldn't be able to get that certification either. So there's a lot of, again, processes that you have to follow. There's also, again, other special programs out there. Here's just a list of them. Most of you are aware of them. I know that on the Township Bridge Program in Needy Township, IDOT's worked with township officials on how those rules work. They just went through the Needy Township last year. Again, if you have a truck route that you want to establish, there's extra money for you. It's not a lot of money. So again, the amount of money you're getting is not really going to offset the cost to build out the road. But if it's something you're already doing, if it's already something that you're planning on making a truck route because you have a grain silo or an industry coming in, I would go ahead and look at applying for dollars. Again, extra dollars, but it's not going to offset the cost of the improvements. But again, if you're already planning the improvements, it's a good thing to consider. You have safety funds that you can go to. We also had an emergency repair program and earmarks and past capital bills. Any questions on funding? I know that was a long talk, a long portion on funding, but that is critical to actually be able to implement your maintenance program. Because if you don't understand your money and you don't understand where the money is coming from and how to use it, you can't effectively implement your maintenance program. So when we start to look at implementing it, we want to talk about our locations, we want to talk about what treatments we want to use, who's going to perform the work, and then we also want to know what our estimates are going to be, our costs are going to be. So locations. Most of you probably have something very similar, right? You look at your map and you say, okay, the blue lines, I'm going to oil and chip. The orange lines, I need a little bit better of a maintenance program or higher surface treatment, whether that be a microsurfacing, a seal coat. Again, pick your treatment for the different colors. It doesn't matter. But what you need to do is look at the roads and figure out which roads do I think I need to fix. It can be a rotation cycle, right? So it can simply say, okay, all my roads, all my seal-coated roads, I want to seal coat every 5 years. So you go each year and, okay, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. Great, you were able to do that. But over the last 10 years, you've noticed, guess what? I can't get back to my roads every 5 years. So how long can you go? Well, how much money do you have? Right? So it might just come down as simple as that is, well, I can't do 5 years, now I'm on a 10-year cycle. So I'm going to seal coat my roads every 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. Well, if we don't get more money, that's eventually going to become 15 years. So again, that's where at some point you might say this rotation cycle is no longer working for me. I need to now prioritize my key routes. And what are my key routes? And those are the roads that I'm going to need to make sure that I'm seal coating every 5 to 8 years. These other roads, I'm not going to touch. I'm going to leave them where they're at. They're going to get plowed in the winter. They're going to get maybe their shoulders regraded, the ditch cleaned out, but that's all I can do. I will tell you, and when we talk about treatments, the best thing you can do is keep water off your road. If you can keep the water off your road, that's going to be the best maintenance procedure you can have. So if you have to sacrifice something, don't sacrifice cleaning out your ditches and fixing the grading. That's your biggest bang for your buck on your maintenance, is making sure you keep the water off of it. But your locations are going to depend on your money. No ifs, ands, or doubts about it. You're going to figure out what roads you want to work on, and you're going to have to figure out, do I have enough money to do it? And you're going to have to adjust this based on your funding. And I would recommend you prioritizing your key routes. And your key routes you need to define. I can't do that for you. This is a chart from IDOT, Local Roads Manual. This is for flexible roads for hot mix asphalt. You can see there's a matrix, all right? So depending on what type of distress you have, whether it's block cracking, whether it's rutting, whether it's flushing, what treatment do I want to do? Do I want a crack fill? Do I want a crack seal? Do I want a fog seal? Do I want a slurry seal? Do I want a micro? Do I want a cold mill and overlay, ultra thin friction course? A lot of different treatments in there. Doesn't matter what your treatments are. You guys know what works best for your roads. Again, you're talking a seal coat road. There's not a lot you can do on maintenance that except for reseal coating that road. Again, it's probably been built up over time. It's probably started off as an earth road. Then some highway commissioner 50 years ago started dumping some aggregate on it. And then the aggregate built up over time. Maybe has 6 to 10 inches of aggregate. And then at some point, another highway commissioner said, oh, you know what? This is now getting a higher volume road. I better seal coat this road, put an A1, A2, A3 over it, and put a seal coat over it. And then over the years, over the last 30 years, it's had, every 5 to 8 years, it's had another seal coat put over. And it might have a half an inch to an inch of some type of surface on it. That's fine. There's not a lot of maintenance that you can do, putting a microsurfacing over that. It's a waste of money. Microsurfacing is really just an expensive seal coat. Works great over hot mix asphalt and flexible pavements because it's going to give you a stiffer ride. It's going to make the road look black. It's going to bring back the friction. But it's relying on that structure underneath of it to keep it solid. Again, if you have this road that's just built up over time, the treatment you're going to do on it is seal coating. Again, crack filling or crack sealing is not going to help you. Again, that crack is still going to be there. You don't have enough structure to hold that crack together. So you need to decide what treatments you're doing, and I guarantee you know what's the right thing to do. It's just a question of, do I have enough money for the treatments that I want? And when you don't, then that's when you have to figure out which roads do I want to give up, which roads do I want to make sure that I keep at a high level. And if you do have flexible pavements, again, those are going to be the ones that or concrete pavements if you have some concrete roads, those are the ones you want to focus on because it's going to be a lot more expensive to maintain the roads further down those get. A seal coat road, you let it get a little bit out of whack, it's a little easier to bring it back up into condition when you get more money. But if you have a full depth HMA road or a road with 3, 4, 5 inches of hot mix on it, or a concrete road, once that road starts going down, it's going to go down fast and it's going to be very hard to bring it back to level without a significant cost. Who's going to do the work? Do I want to contract it out or do I want to do it myself with day labor forces? Again, no right or wrong reason. If you have capable staff, if you know that you guys have good guys and they know what they're doing, great. I know there's some counties out there that they do a cold mix with a motor grader and it looks like hot mix. But those operators have been putting that down for 20, 30 years and they know what they're doing. Again, if that's not an option for you, or you lose that operator that you've had for the last 25 years and you got a new guy, he may not be as capable. It may take him a while to learn how to do it. So do you still want to do it that way and let him learn, or do you want to start contracting it out at that time? Those are all decisions that you need to make as a highway commissioner, and it's going to change year to year because it's going to depend on your staffing. It's going to depend on your equipment. It's great if you have newer equipment and you can do some of this work yourself. But if it comes down to buying a $300,000 piece of equipment or contracting the work out or entering into an intergovernmental agreement with another highway commissioner or another agency to do the work, that's a decision that you're going to have to make. Again, you can plan for some things, but some things you can't plan for. A guy quitting the next day when you think he has another 10 years of working, or somebody passing away unexpectedly. If somebody is getting ready to retire, you might know that, and you can start training him, and he can be working with somebody that you think can replace him. But if you don't have that notice, you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to make a modification on how you do things. Again, no right or wrong reason. Generally, as a general rule, you're going to pay a little bit more for contract work. But again, for the individual work, it might be more cost effective in the long term if you don't have that employee's salary and benefits that you have to maintain, even though you may not have the work for him. To work 24, to work his normal shifts all day long. Maybe you need to hire more help in the winter, so you hire the snowbirds or you hire the extra help in the winter, and you don't have as much staff during the summer. Cost estimates. Good luck. That's all I can say with you. I mean, you can see that this is just one thing factor, and this is asphalt binder versus gasoline. So asphalt binder is what the rack price that the refineries pay. So it's your paving grades, but all those paving grades are also used in all of your emulsions for road work. Okay, so you can see over time we fluctuated. There appears to be some. We tend to, the asphalt price tends to lag a little bit behind the gasoline price. But what happened here? I don't know. Why did asphalt binder, that blue line, shoot up? And this blue line is on the left axis, so we're at about $600 a ton. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was about $30, $40 a ton. Gasoline prices, we're starting to see it tick down. That's the axis over here. But what are gasoline prices are going to do? I don't know. The one interesting thing is the crude sources that we're getting now from the fracking in the Dakotas and the Canadian tar sands. That oil is very good for gasoline. It has a lot of light ends. Doesn't have very much asphalt in it. So again, while we're getting more asphalt or more gasoline from those areas, not a lot of good asphalt in it. At the same time, refineries have improved their processes where asphalt is no longer a waste product. Most refineries now have the capability of making every last drop of oil out of that barrel into gasoline through the through the cracking process that they have at the plants. So they coke it out, and it basically comes out with a real cheap coal is what's all that's left. There is no asphalt left over. So as refineries change their processes, is this price coming up? Is it eventually going to follow this coming down? I hope so. I mean, it's a big impact to my industry. But it's the same thing, cement. Cement prices have been kind of stagnant and have gone down because of the recession. They weren't building subdivisions and infrastructure and vertical construction. Once the economy turns around, and we're already seeing that, cement prices are probably going to go back up. So again, steel prices have gone up a lot, so your bridge costs have increased significantly over the time. So all these things are coming into play. You have very little control over that. So all you can do is figure out, okay, this is the best I have, these are the estimates I have moving forward, but you can't control it. And so you're going to have to make adjustments to your maintenance program based on what the costs are in the market. And that's just the realities that we have. And then like with any program, you want to modify it over time. All right? And you're going to modify it based on the realities that you're facing. You may have emergencies that come up that you're going to have to adjust for. Again, your funding, it's going to fluctuate. Hopefully it's relatively stable and you can forecast it, but a flat funding is not good for you when we have soaring prices. And demographics, as you have changes in populations, whether you're growing or you're shrinking. You're going to need to make changes in your maintenance program. You can't just take that same maintenance program that you used last year and reuse it. You have to look at it each year and decide, is this the right? Am I using the tax dollars appropriately? And then evaluation. All right, am I doing things right? Am I getting positive feedback from the motoring public? What is the condition of my roadways? Am I having to turn roads back to gravel? Again, it's not saying you're doing anything wrong. It's a question of, are you prioritizing your tax dollars? In some cases, it might actually make more sense to turn your roads back to gravel. I think at the summer seminar last year and the year before, we had the guy from South Dakota come in and talk about making those decisions on when I want to go back to gravel. And in some cases, financially, it makes more sense for you to turn a road back to gravel than to spend dollars on a road that's really not, it probably should have never been hard surface or seal coated in the first place. But again, when costs were low, it made sense because that's what the driving public wanted. But for low volume roads, gravel roads very well may be where you need to be. And you want to keep your higher volume roads hard surface. Safety. Are you seeing any problems with safety? Do you see increasing crashes, or are you seeing more fatalities or injuries on your roadways? If you are, well, you need to look at your maintenance program and make sure, am I doing something in my maintenance program that may not be helping the safety data? Can I do something with the grading of my shoulders? Maybe it's again going back to the type of seal coat or the type of program they're using. What can I do to improve safety on the road? Again, it's hard in the rural areas because a lot of times it's the person driving back roads because they've been out in bars drinking all night. And they're going too fast on dirt roads and gravel roads with poor lighting. But you may not be able to control those, but the idea is if I can make my roads safe, even for somebody that's drunk, that if they do go off the road, they're not going to hit a tree. They're not going to flip their car. They're going to go out into the cornfield and be out in the middle of the cornfield and stuck, but they're not going to lose their lives. So again, is there something I can do in my maintenance program through the grading and the shoulder work? So those are all things you need to consider as part of your evaluation. Again, I appreciate the time that you guys give me. I do want to remind you that TFIC does have some informational sessions that we're working on legislators on. So I've got these handouts out here. We're going to be in the Central Illinois, the Quincy, Macomb, and then also the Galesburg area. If you're in those areas, I strongly encourage you to attend. And we'll be in Springfield and Jacksonville on Thursday, and then we're in the Quad Cities in December. But this is a very important meetings to try to get you the money that you need in order to continue to maintain your roads.
She did stress yesterday that she really needs people to give the area response. She doesn't have many people signed up for that yet. She really wants to see more people give her.
And like I said, it's important that the legislators understand the local needs, the road district needs. You have 77,000 miles of the highways in Illinois, over half of them. It's critical that these legislators hear from you that you need more money and you need sustainable funding that you can count on, and you don't need another big bond program. You want money that you can maintain your roads and the infrastructure that you currently have. So we've got these handouts. If you want to grab one if you're in those areas, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.